You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Hey, we are back. We are talking to David Litke, who made Aliyah in 1983, and about 2 years ago, with his son, he formed a business to provide budget counseling to families, mostly American Olim, or Anglo-Olim, as well as helping them on a day-to-day basis. They have a great free email tips that they send out, and they do seminars and private counseling with clients. So, David, I'd like to welcome you to the show and ask you to start with telling us what are some of the techniques for teaching our children about money.
Well, thank you, Doug, for having me on. Teaching our children about money is the same as teaching them about anything that we think is important for them in life. And so early on, as early as they can understand, we need to teach them how money is used and how it works, what credit cards are, checking accounts, how interest payments work, the miracle of compound interest, fees and commissions that we might pay in the bank for overdrafts and so on, budgeting, saving, putting money away for an emergency fund.
So you try to get them involved very early?
As early as we can, as early as they can understand. Mm-hmm. As early as they can understand and show some responsibility with money. When they have money, they should learn that some of it is meant to be saved, some of it is meant to be spent, and some should be given away as tzedakah, as charity. The whole issue of goal setting, saving for something that we want in the long term, delaying the gratification, as much as is possible within the limits, depending on obviously the age of the child, whether he's 6 or 7 years old or 16 and 17. Obviously, there are many differences. And we should, as much as possible, in a general way, share with them also a bit about our own parents' budget life. Obviously, not all the details and not everything that we spend and do, but they should understand the immense responsibility that comes with having money.
A lot of times people say that if you tell your kids too much about money, especially the money problems, right? For a lot of people, they're having issues on a monthly basis. It can create a real anxiety in the children. Do you think that's true, or do you think it's better to let them know that there's a real problem?
Well, you have to be very careful. I don't believe that children should know what their parents' problems are, whether they're money or otherwise, or if, God forbid, there's a difficulty between the parents in the relationship. Children need to be insulated also as much as possible. But the issue of money, the child's own money life, is separate from the issue of his parents' money life to a large degree. In other words, if he has money to spend, whether it's through an allowance or he earns some money, he needs to make his own decisions what to do with that money. Part of educating with that is to show him that we, mom and dad, also make these decisions all the time. We have to decide how much we're going to spend for food this month or on other things. And so you also have to make those decisions. But if the parents, for example, are in some sort of deep financial crisis or so on, I don't believe that should be shared with a child. I don't believe it's any of his business, and it doesn't contribute anything to his money education. As much as possible, the parents should just share, if you will, the positive lessons and constructive lessons of what to do with money. There's another issue here, of course, that if the parents themselves are in trouble, perhaps they themselves haven't...
they don't have anything to teach necessarily.
Right. That might be. That's a separate issue, right? But certainly, I don't think children should be burdened with that.
So you mentioned before about giving an allowance to kids. A lot of families either give allowance or they give some sort of compensation for the chores that the children do around the house. Is that a good way to get kids involved in money?
Absolutely. Allowances, in and of themselves, I think should only perhaps be given at a very young age when children really cannot work and make money on their own and perhaps don't understand their obligations to the family as a member of the family. But I think from a young age, even as 6 and 7 perhaps, they could receive some partial payment for chores done around the house. But also we must teach them that there are many obligations that have to be fulfilled within the family for which we do not get paid because we are all family members and we're all working towards the welfare of the family. I think that money earned outside the family should be allowed to be kept by the child, again with a stipulation that we should teach them that all money should have three goals or uses. Again, the saving, the spending, and the giving.
Mm-hmm. We are talking to David Litke, who, along with his son, has a business that provides budget counseling mostly to Anglo-Olim, and also sends out a regular email, which I have to say that I get and I find quite interesting. And David, my day job is that I'm a financial advisor, but I'm not a budget counselor. I think there's a lot of confusion between the two. Perhaps could you just comment on that, what the difference is between what you do and what I do?
Absolutely. I'll just put it on a very simple timeline. A couple might come to me and say, we're having trouble making ends meet. Can you help us out? So we'll sit down and find out what they've been spending recently, and then together we'll decide. Actually, they make the final decision that on 1, 2, 3, 4 different items we need to cut back. And so we go with a tweezers, and line by line go through the monthly budget, trying to help and give advice and show areas where money can be saved. If, as has happened many times, people come to me who don't live in debt and don't live in overdraft, but manage to save money each month, I've also had people come and say to me, well, we've got a little bit more money left over each month. We're a couple of thousand shekels more than we spend. Income is overspending. What do you think we should do with that? Well, we'll see what kind of savings plans they have and so on. How are they set up for pensions? Perhaps they can contribute more towards long-term savings and so on. And at that point also we would refer the couple towards a financial advisor more in the nature of what you do. In other words, you are a very valuable resource for people who have money to invest and save. You are not likely to be able to be visited by a family that's living in overdraft and cannot make ends meet. So if we could put it on a timeline, I might be the first person they would come to help them get straightened out. And if things succeeded well for them and they were able to begin to put away money, I would recommend them to come to you and see what they could do about more long-term investing and savings. Okay, thanks. What about the case of someone who really is in debt and they're having a hard time cutting, and then they say, I have so many expenses. What, I have to add yet another expense of someone to tell me how to cut spending? How do people rationalize that or deal with that problem? It comes up all the time, of course. I very simply say to them, look, you've been living with these habits, if you will, or after all, money, the spending of money is more behavior than anything else. So you've been living with these habits for a number of years. You got to a situation of great debt, let's say, for an example, 50,000 shekels, not by deciding to buy one big expensive car, but by many, many small incremental decisions over a long period of time. And in order to get out of debt, it's also going to take a while. But wouldn't it be worth it to you over a short period of time to pay a small amount of money in order that over a long period of time you would save a lot of money? And I basically say to people, I guarantee that if you follow the advice that I give and follow the plan, so the relatively small amount of money that you would pay me in comparison to your debt, you will earn back many, many times over, tens of times over and hundreds of times over if we stretch it out over a very long period of time. It's a very hard psychological switch for people to make, as you mentioned in your question. Why should I spend money to get out of debt? I'm already in money. I'm already in debt. But there is no alternative to learning the tricks, learning to change behavior and so on, which sometimes a third party coming in as a counselor and so on can see things and point out things that the couple themselves involved in the long-term money problems are not able to see. You mentioned you referred to a couple. How about dealing with single-parent households? We've dealt with them also, absolutely. In a certain sense, that's easier because there doesn't have to be coordination between the spouses. In most families settings, of course, we have two spouses, and they need to be on the same page and in the same frame of mind to take care of the things that will need to be taken care of and the changes that need to be made. And many times this is a tremendous obstacle because they have different opinions and don't agree, and there's a blame game somewhere. And we have to be very, very acutely aware of that. Also, we're not marriage counselors, so we prefer to work with people couples are on the same page and come to us with the same frame of mind. Mm-hmm. Certainly, single parents that's not an issue.
Okay. We have been talking to David Litke, who is a personal budget counselor. He, along with his son, set up a company a couple of years ago and helped people. David, just the last few seconds, could you tell our listeners how they could learn more about the work that you're doing?
Okay, we offer free email tips to any subscriber. Simply click on www.budgetrelief, that's one word, COIL, www.budgetrelief.co.il, and you can sign up for free budget tips. And there you will find out a lot of nice tips about saving money in Israel, especially Israeli consumer issues. And we also notify you on occasion when we have seminars in the Jerusalem area, also free consultations at the AACI. And that's one way, the best way to get involved with what we do.
Okay, fabulous. David Litke, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.